Hi, my name is Marie Leonard. When I read Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, the way that I looked at being rich as a possibility for me took on a completely different meaning. Finally, here was someone putting in plain language what it was that made me different from someone who was rich, and also showed me how I could change my beliefs in order for myself also to become rich. Throughout his book, Mr. Eker has what he calls wealth principles. The first principle simply states that our income can only grow to the extent that we grow as individuals. But in order to do this, we have to identify what it is that is stopping us from growing in the first place. According to Mr. Eker, how we think about money starts with our very first blueprint. This blueprint is formed by verbal programming, by modeling of our behavior on others, and by our very own experiences with regards to money. But our brain can be rewired to think in a certain way, to think like a rich person thinks. Mr. Eker believes that declarations are a powerful secret for change, and he consistently uses declarations throughout his book. He is fond of saying that what you hear, you forget, what you see, you remember, and what you do, you understand. That's why he uses touch our heart while we verbally do the statement, and touch our head while we do a positive statement that rewires our brain. The first one goes like this, with your hand on your heart: my inner world creates my outer world. I have a millionaire mind. Now I wanted to add to this process to make the connection to our brain a little quicker so that the rewiring will be more permanent. I've been in the health field for 14 years and have had many opportunities to look at different modalities of health that help the body and the mind rewire our health program. And one of these is Emotional Freedom Technique by Gary Craig, in short EFT. EFT is simply an emotional version of acupuncture, except needles aren't necessary. Instead, you stimulate well-established meridian points on the body by tapping on them with your fingertips. The process is easy to memorize, easy to do, and very portable. So the declaration that we are going to use, we are going to work with EFT, is this one. As Mr. Eker has us do, hand on your heart: what I heard about money isn't necessarily true. I choose to adopt new ways of thinking and support my happiness and success. I have a millionaire mind. Now this is a wonderful declaration which our intellect totally believes without a doubt, but it really hasn't made its way into our subconscious mind. This is where I hope to show you how EFT can speed up this process. We will be using an affirmation that will help this process along. The affirmation is this: even though I have allowed myself to be programmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. While we say this 3 times, we're going to look for the sore spot on our underneath our collarbone. Past your hand, there's an area where you will find some kind of tender spot. You're going to be rubbing this spot and say along with me: even though I have allowed myself to be programmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I have allowed myself to be programmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I have allowed myself to be programmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. Now this is our basic statement. To continue building our sandwich, we need a piece of bread, our meat, and our lower piece of bread. So we're going to start with the first portion of our statement using allowed myself to be programmed, and the tapping procedure on different parts of the body. Just follow along or watch first, and then you can redo if you replay the video. We're going to say allowed myself to be programmed, 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 allowed myself to be programmed. Now this is not the sore spot. This is just a little in from the sore spot near the bone in the little dip of the bone. Allowed myself to be programmed. Underneath the arm in line with the breast, allowed myself to be programmed, and under the breast, allowed myself to be programmed. We will finish with the hand series. Allowed myself to be programmed, allowed myself to be programmed, allowed myself to be programmed. Skipping the fourth finger, allowed myself to be programmed. Finishing with the karate chop, allowed myself to be programmed. Now, we've only built our top piece. We need to build the meat of our sandwich, which is called the gamut. Running the gamut is a series of eye movements and some singing. I'm not the greatest singer, so I'm going to be humming, and that's what he calls for. Mr. Craig calls for humming, usually happy birthday, and it goes like this. And you will be pressing, tapping on the back of the hand, which is called the gamut point. So eyes closed, allowed myself to be programmed. Eyes open, allowed myself to be programmed. Eyes down far to the right without bending the head. Allowed myself to be programmed. To the left, allowed myself to be programmed. Eyes circling to the right, allowed myself to be programmed. To the left, allowed myself to be programmed. Humming. Counting to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and humming. Now we've done our meat of our sandwich. We will finish with running through the first sequence again. Allowed myself to be programmed, 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 allowed myself to be programmed. And it's not really necessary to run through the hand procedure. So that's it. See? It's very easy to learn, easy to do, and is very portable. Now that your brain knows that it has been programmed, we have to reprogram with new wealth files, new ways in which rich people think and act differently from the poor and middle class people, which we all, majority of us, fall into. So in order to do this, I will be presenting other videos that follow this one that will cover all of Mr. Ecker's wealth principles. See you on the flip side.